This is Ponderosa North for the love of Bonanza, and I'm going to continue on with my character studies today with the patriarch of the family, Ben Cartwright. Benjamin, aka Ben, aka Mr. Cartwright, aka Sir, as in yes sir and no sir, aka Pa. He was a very sophisticated man, very worldly. He was tough, he was stoic, very hardworking, understanding, sympathetic. He was a very honorable man. He was fair. He was very classy. He was a classy guy. But at the beginning of the show, Ben was very sort of a gruff sort of man who spent most of his time chasing people off his land. Who's that on my land? Get off my land. He was very, we can't let sheep roam our land and rape the land. And he softened over the next couple of years and became very welcoming to people. He understood that people were coming west, and he became far more tolerable of people riding and going over his land and trying to take his land. And people were always trying to take it, though. Always. They were always trying to overrun the Ponderosa. But he, most of all, Ben loved his boys. He loved his sons more than life itself. But being tolerable and understanding and patient, yes, he was, but there were occasions where he could lose his temper big time. In Ponderosa Matador, when Haas and Joab decided to do some bullfighting in the living room, and after smashing it all to bits, Ben came in thinking he was going to have to shoot someone and ended up finding his boys on the floor in his office, and he just said, "Boys, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. If you're going to do any roughhousing, do it outside!" That happened a lot. He did lose his patience and actually got angry with his sons over several occasions. This was sort of the not again kind of face that he'd give his boys when they got into trouble. Ben was a very savvy businessman. He had a dream, like I've mentioned before, but he had cattle ranch, like we all know. He had a timber business, he had mines, and he was a horse breeder. So he was very savvy running businesses and an entrepreneur, absolutely. I mean, he started from nothing and built an empire. He would have been a fabulous grandfather, eh? If only his boys had cooperated with that. He would have been a great grandfather. Kids loved him. He loved kids, obviously. He was a very busy guy. He was on many committees. He was on the U.S. Indian Affairs Committee. He was on the Virginia City School Board. He was on the Cattlemen's Association. He was on the Virginia City Council. He was a very upstanding citizen, and he was considered the first governor of Nevada once it had gotten statehood. He was very sympathetic to the tribes around the Ponderosa. Yes, he was a landowner, but he was sympathetic to the Indian tribes in his area, the Paiutes and the Bannocks. And they all knew him well, and often used him as a mediator at times. So, yeah, very sympathetic to Native Americans. As far as the ladies, Ben was no stranger to the ladies. They loved him. Ada Menken, he loved sort of women of the stage. You know, he was an opera singer and actresses and stuff like that. He was actually, speaking of the Indian tribes, he was actually given a young Indian maiden, who he did his Pygmalion routine on. That was quite a fun episode. So, very sophisticated man, dressed up. Look at that. Yeah. Fine dressed man, Ben Cartwright was. He was very moral. He was very regal. They were sort of the Kennedys of Nevada. Very, very strong, stoic man. And a single parent. Yeah, you got to give him kudos for raising 3 boys. I'm sure there were nannies and stuff in there, but I think most of the time it was all him, and his sons reflected him in all kinds of different ways. I just want to lend you a story from a convention. I met a man there. You get into talking, why are you here, what's your favorite? And he said, well, Ben. Ben was my favorite character. And I, oh, why is that? And he said, well, I never had a father. I had no father figure in my life. And I'd watch Ben Cartwright and his boys every Sunday night, and I would use him as my father figure and use him as the model to raise my own children. So I really have a lot to say about the figure of Ben Cartwright as father on Bonanza. So that's it for my character study of Benjamin, Pa. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to hear your comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And see you next time on Ponderosa North for the love of Bonanza.